There's nothing like just picking up the phone and helping a user all the way one-on-one. That's what helped mega startup Superhuman. Today, we're talking to the founders of Cohere. Their software will let you do exactly that kind of onboarding, helping users directly, but in an even more awesome way, right there inside the web browser so you don't even have to set it up by phone or Zoom. It's the kind of thing every startup with high lifetime value absolutely needs. A way to push retention and conversion. If you nail retention and conversion, you can have a billion-dollar startup. There are literally startups today that might be watching this right now that couldn't happen, but now can because Cohere exists. This video and this startup could help you so much that it makes you. Let's get into it. Yanyu, Rahul, thank you so much for coming on the YouTube channel. It's really just a pleasure to sit down with you. You're working on something that's really going to change the way people build products, actually, and have them work for their customers. Off the bat, I wanted to start off with, what is Cohere?
Thank you, Garry. Thanks for having us. Cohere is the easiest way to onboard and support your users. So if you log into the Cohere dashboard, you can see every single user live on your website. And if you see anyone in need of help, you can just jump in, take control in one click. No setup required on either side.
We've tried to make Cohere feel like you're standing right beside your users, like in the same room. So everything is super fast, instantaneous, and there's no setup required on either end. So if you've ever had to support, some user, maybe it's your mom, over the phone, and you're going around back and forth on the screen share, asking them, what page are you on? Can you click this button over here? We prevent that from happening entirely because you can see what they're doing in real time and interact with what their screen is on. And you no longer have to verbally describe how to navigate your user interface or try to, fish out what they're seeing in their app.
Basically, what you'd have to do previously is pick up the phone and literally try to guess at what someone is doing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you're lucky to even get someone on the phone at times.
Exactly. And having no screen share over phone makes it even worse because now companies are forced to get on Zoom or Google Meets, which makes it even harder to get on calls with people and they need help.
I mean, it sounds like the best way to actually understand it is just watch a demo.
If you have your phone next to you, and I hope you do, we'd like you to open a link. I'm now going to request access to your phone. On my Cohere dashboard, I see what you're doing already. So if I click this button on my side, Gary's going to get a prompt that says Rahul is requesting permission to control this web page. And Garry, can you please go ahead and click accept, grant access? Awesome. So now I'm controlling Gary's screen live. So I can actually show him around. He sees my cursor. I can show him how to do different workflows within my service, within my web app. So I'm currently maybe helping Garry selecting and deleting some users inside his account.
I remember running my own startup, and sometimes there were flows that were somewhat complicated, and I found myself trying to type out instructions in an email and hoping that the user might actually do it. Or in very extreme cases, if the user was really famous or really important for us, I would actually pick up the phone and walk them through something like a custom domain setup for their blog or something like that. And I just wish I had this back when I was running Posterous, because then I wouldn't have to do any of this. Who is Cohere in your mind sort of best for?
So there's two groups of people that it really works well for. And one of them is, like you said, if you're a founder starting off and you're finding your first users, you'd like to give an outstanding customer experience and truly understand their workflows and fix issues as they happen, then Cohere is for you. So a bunch of people tell us they use it as a command center for their application. Like they leave it open on their TV and they get a live feed of what's going on with their app, what users are doing, what they're struggling through, etc. And secondly, a bunch of our customers have told us that they've saved a lot of deals and recovered lost revenue because the information on the Cohere dashboard is always live, instantaneous, and actionable.
The second group of people that Cohere really resonates well with is people who spend a lot of time of their day supporting or onboarding customers. So if you're spending a lot of time screen sharing, people have told us they save 15 minutes every single call because they can completely get rid of the screen share stuff. So you're no longer scheduling a Zoom meeting with them and then asking them to share their screen, and maybe they don't have Zoom installed, or maybe their mobile phone. You can't do these workflows on the phone because you have to screen share. So if you're helping someone with an issue, a lot of the time is just getting context. So questions like, what screen are you on? What problem are you looking at? What error are you seeing? All these go away when you have Cohere because you're just seeing instantly what they're looking at. You can get that context instantly versus asking several questions over several minutes. Cohere really helps you prevent these back and forth conversations, like click that button here, and no, not that one, the green one on the top right, and just lets you take control of their screen, walk them through, just like you're sitting right next to them.
Silicon Valley is quite obsessed, for instance, with the extreme onboard of Superhuman. And with Cohere, it sounds like what you get to do is another level of, even better experience for onboarding or for customer support than even what you might get in that sort of extreme Superhuman onboard.
That's right. I was lucky enough to be part of the Superhuman team a couple of years ago as an intern, back when they were just a team of 15 people. So I got to sit next to onboarding specialists going through these 30-minute calls, and I would see people iterating on these calls and trying to make these experiences better. But it always came down to one point, which is you verbally tell the customer what to do. So you're always telling them, now do X, or now do Y. And instead, Cohere lets you show and not just tell.
What do you do? There have been platforms that, sort of are meant for customer success or to be able to see what your users are doing. What do you do that other people who have attempted this, they don't do?
So firstly, Cohere is live and actionable. There's a lot of analytics platforms out there. There's a lot of session replay platforms out there. But the problem is whenever you go on those dashboards, the data is always almost too late. So your user has probably left the site. The error has already happened. The churn has already happened. Maybe you've lost some revenue. You can always fix those issues and prevent them from happening again. But with Cohere, because the data is live, you can just jump in and fix it before the user churns or leaves their website. Secondly, Cohere lets you keep your stack. So a lot of companies use a lot of tooling around customer success and support, and you don't have to rip out your entire stack just to be able to use Cohere. Cohere plays along really well with phone calls or Zoom or Zendesk or Intercom or Salesforce or Slack. We built integrations to all these tools. So no matter what channel your users come in with, you can always just jump on Cohere and start helping them out.
Another thing is oftentimes we work with customers in slightly more sensitive industries, like they're expecting support agents to help them with sensitive business information or information that they might not necessarily want that many people to have access to. And we've spent a lot of time thinking about security. And one of the ways that Cohere works, we'll elaborate on this later, is it lets you block out items selectively. We can protect end user privacy. Say you're helping someone on a payroll platform, and you want the support agent to be able to see what screen the user's on, but not necessarily be able to view like individual social security numbers. We allow the agent to do that. You as the application developer can only let people see what they need to see. And there's also flexible permissions for requesting control, what you can click on, what you are able to interact with on the customer side. And we've taken this super seriously as an early stage startup. A bunch of our customers, especially the larger folks, have all sorts of compliance requirements that you just can't be satisfied with the full screen share or some of these other platforms. And we've gone ahead and gotten our SOC 2 Type 1 certification relatively early, I think, for startups, just to ensure communicate our dedication to security and privacy.
It's basically secure by default because the way you actually do this is at the DOM level instead of at the pixel level. Everyone else sort of does it at the pixel level, and then if you do that, then are you really going to do OCR on the pixels to make sure that there's no PII? And then even to do that, like this third party has to actually have access to the PII. So I like that. That's actually one of the most technically challenging and difficult things to do right. The thing that you figured out, like DOM level sync and control, also enables the number one thing that enterprises actually care about, which is no personally identifiable information leaking all over the place. Like, everyone's always wanted to do exactly what you do, but without the DOM level control, you wouldn't be able to do it securely and privately.
We also support a lot of user level features to protect our users and users. Obviously, with a tool like Cohere, it puts a lot of power into our users' hands. And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about security and privacy of our end users. Firstly, we have flexible permissions. So we let our end users control when their screen is being shared and what level of access they grant our customers. So if the end user is granting permission, only if the end user grants permission to control the screen will our users be able to take control. We also have flexible permissions like not being able to click or scroll, but just be able to guide users through certain workflows for certain industries where compliance may be a challenge.
So yeah, I mean, we talked about some things that were technically challenging and hard. What else? Why now?
The move to the cloud has been accelerating, where you have these legacy business workflows, they're being moved to software. As a result, software is getting hyper verticalized. It's getting more and more complicated because they need to support a lot more things that map from the old way to the new way. And as a result, in order to get people familiar with the software, make sure that they can get the most value out of it, they know how to use it the most effectively, you need to onboard, train, and understand their workflows. And the tools for doing that just are not very good right now.
We totally see that in the marketplace. Everything that people do that used to be paper and pencil now needs to come over to software. But with that, these are some of the largest and most complex industries that exist. So it's no surprise that the need for onboarding just suddenly went up 10 or 100x, and that you're sort of hitting the market right at the right time. You have a bunch of customers that are already seeing huge value right now. What are some of the ones you're most proud of?
Yeah, so one of our customers, Canix, they won the TechCrunch Disrupt tournament this year, but they do a software, point of sales, and warehousing infrastructure for cannabis companies. And the onboarding is exceptionally complicated because they are basically replacing the entire back office of the business. So what they've told us is that they have a lot of customers who are not technically savvy. So even getting them to screen share, on a Zoom, et cetera, is super complicated compared to just giving them a phone call. The response from their customers has been insane. Their agents, when they're supporting someone, they just say, "Yeah, I can already see what you're doing. Now just go ahead and click that." And one of our customers, VS24, they make virtual staging software for real estate agents. Their customer base is usually less savvy, and oftentimes they need to get support for the product over the phone. Before, the customer would call them up or contact them with a live chat. They'd go back and forth a ton of times. How do I do this? What does this mean? Etc. And oftentimes they would just get frustrated and churn and not, end up converting for product. So now the workflow for them is way simpler. They just get the customer on the phone, click a button to get their permission to see the screen, and instantly guide them through the issue. And this has helped them turn a lot of frustrated leads who might not have gotten through the workflow into lifelong customers. And before, it would take over 30 minutes to get the customer through signing up and onboarding and setting up the project. And now it's like 30 seconds.
That's amazing. It sounds like a Swiss Army knife for customer success, basically. But it's not just customer success, right? It's also PMs probably love this as well because short of actually sitting next to a user, you often don't know what people are doing and what they're getting stuck on. And there's nothing quite like seeing a super visceral, just like, are they going to get it done? And if they get it done, you're just going to feel so good. And on the flip side, like if they churn, you start to get that pattern match to understand, like, you know, do I have the right mental model for the user? Do I have the right call to actions? Maybe they're getting lost. I mean, it's just a very, very fat pipe of, visceral experience from your user that, you know, PMs also get in addition to the customer success case.
Yeah, definitely. Like, one of our customers, Osmond, they're in the latest YC batch. With Cohere, they do instantaneous guided tours from leads coming in from the webpage, where the customer gets to play around on their own account that they set up for them. And before, oftentimes, the PMs, they wouldn't be on these customer calls for the most part because you'd have to go through all that scheduling overhead stuff. And now they're just able to instantly guide the customer through the platform. Actually, I think we mentioned this before, but some of our customers tend to leave Cohere up on a second monitor and just to watch people poking around their app, go through usage issues and like really understand the user journeys through the product. And what they've told us is, focusing on the stuff that's live lets them proactively, reach out and identify things that would have otherwise taken a while to figure out.
At the end of the day, Cohere seems like just this silver it's nearly a silver bullet for not just customer success, but also PM, and then you could argue sales. And if you can touch that many parts of the business, then, it does feel like in the future, we'll sort of wonder how we created web services or products, period, without Cohere. It sounds like the other thing that's a really big milestone for Cohere is that this is great for small startups that are just starting out, but it's also ready for billion-dollar companies. And, you have some that you can't talk about yet, but they are already using you. Basically, you're enterprise ready is the amazing thing. I think one of the other things that we failed to mention is kind of just got started last year, actually.
Yeah, we were in the YC batch last year, and we did demo day last August. That's when we got a chance to meet you guys at Initialized.
Turns out that some of the people who have the biggest need for a solution like this are larger, tech unicorns who have a lot of dedicated customer support.
We're also excited to report that we closed our first large SaaS unicorn earlier this year. Their support operation now runs in Cohere, and they report that they're able to get through calls faster, help their users better, and get more power users on their platform.
So, for those who are watching, what's the best way to get started with Cohere?
All you got to do is go to our landing page, sign up for an account, and add the script to your app. It takes about 5 minutes total setup time, and we'd be happy to help you out. You'll be instantly able to see what users are doing on your application and guide them through stuff the moment you stick the script on your app.
So cohere.so.
Yep, that's the domain.
Good times. And then, so there's no like beta or gates or, if anything, when you sign up, it sounds like you guys might be the ones who drop into a Cohere session and help with any of the sharp edges in the experience.
Yeah, definitely. We use our own product. We've, identified a whole bunch of issues with the onboarding flow that, we've since resolved. But it's super simple, takes about 5 minutes, and you'll be able to see what it does for your app instantly.
Everyone needs to use it, whether you're a tiny startup or a giant company that has millions of users already. It sounds like you're ready for any scale, and it's so helpful for so many different parts of the business. So thank you so much for coming on the YouTube channel. I'm always excited to be able to share some of our best investments, especially when they help other founders get to the success that we all want them to have.
Thank you,
Thanks
Gary.
for having
Thanks
us
for
on,
having
Gary.
us.